There's a few things that are terribly wrong about the whole media debate surrounding the refugee crisis. First of all, I am pretty sick of all the focus on Europe's responsibility. The rich Arab oil states that are close to Syria have not taken a single refugee. The poor countries nearby are taking a massive amount, the rich countries are taking none. Instead, Saudi Arabia are offering to build 200 mosques in Germany. At the same time, Saudi Arabia has an entire town consisting of air-conditioned tents that could house 3 million refugees. And yet we are being told that Sweden needs to accept tens of thousands of refugees despite the fact that we have a housing shortage so bad sexual predators are trying to take advantage of the situation. Today, young students who've graduated can't even move out of their parents' house due to lack of housing. 2/3 of students who've applied for housing in Uppsala have been offered sex in exchange for housing. There's predators trying to take advantage because they know how desperate young people are. Our housing crisis is so bad that Sweden basically needs to build a new Stockholm in order to have room for everyone. That's going to take years, yet we have 50,000 people seeking asylum right now, and it's expected to be 95,000 asylum seekers altogether in 2015. So you look at that, and then you look at the fact that China has literally millions empty apartments standing around, and suddenly it becomes ridiculous to see our politicians and our mass media focusing only on how much immigration Sweden should have in order to be humanitarian. Humanitarianism is not to help an extremely small minority of the world's refugees through immigration, while you completely ignore the remaining millions of people that are left near the conflict area and don't have the money to smuggle themselves north. And I'm sure I'm gonna be called a Nazi for thinking that overpopulation of Sweden isn't the only solution to this crisis, but considering that the Dalai Lama himself shares my opinion on this matter, it feels like I'm in pretty good company. It's very generous of European countries to accept people, but seeing as how there are 59 million refugees worldwide, it's impossible for Europe to provide sanctuary to everyone in need. The long-term solution to the refugee crisis must be found in the Middle East. I agree with the Lama on that, and yet I don't see any politicians focusing on that. But hey, while we're on the subject, maybe Sweden's government shouldn't be donating millions to Al-Qaeda allies. This was done years ago by our previous right-wing government and carries on with our current feminist left-wing Green Party government. Sweden has for years backed Syrian opposition figures who are allied with Al-Qaeda extremists. Read the article to find out the details. Not a single journalist has interrogated our Prime Minister about this. See, this is what pisses me off about the media debate. Nobody is focusing on why these refugees are running away from their homes to begin with. Nobody is talking about our government's support of terrorism. The city of Gothenburg alone has produced more ISIS jihadists than all of America. Muslim radicals in Sweden are given state funding to run their organizations, and the guy in charge of fighting extremism in Gothenburg refused to condemn the Islamic State because all terrorism is bad. I don't want to discriminate.
Men om du säger det där inne, det handlar inte om jihad då?
Man förminskar frågan om man bara pratar om jihad. Att personer reser och strider för olika grupperingar har inte bara med jihad att göra, utan det kan vara andra sammanhang också. Inte minst om man tittar över tid.
Som vilka då? Som exempel?
Ja, vi har ju haft svenska medborgare som har rest både spanska inbördeskriget och finska vinterkriget. Bosnienkriget fanns det också folk som reste till. Nu konflikten som är i Syrien. Folk har rest av olika anledningar. Så det är viktigt att se på frågan brett.
Men Peder Hyllengren tycker att jämförelsen med spanska inbördeskriget och finska vinterkriget är mycket märklig.
Det är en absurd jämförelse. Det här är personer som ansluter till världens värsta terrororganisation. Den enda historiska parallell i modern tid som jag kan komma på som kan vara något sån här relevant, det är i så fall svenskar som anslöt till Waffen-SS under andra världskriget.
Han sa också att Göteborgs stad inte ska ta ställning till vilket krig invånarna åker till. Vad säger du om det?
Ja, det är ett hårresande uttalande. Det är oerhört viktigt att samhället inte står neutralt inför att svenskar engagerar sig för en terrororganisation. Utan här måste samhället vara glasklara med att detta är fel. Vi har en lång historia i Sverige av att kommuner har tagit ställning mot nazism och det är helt okontroversiellt, någonting självklart. Och jag ser inte vad som är skillnaden här. Det borde vara lika självklart att ta ställning mot jihadism.
That's the kind of mangina ambassadors we put in charge to fight extremism here in Sweden. I don't think it's wrong to shed light on the refugee crisis. I think it's wrong to depict immigration as the only solution. Nobody's telling America to stop cooperating with countries that fund the Islamic State. If you don't want a refugee crisis, stop voting for politicians that contribute to wars. I seriously doubt that Sweden is the only country in the entire world whose government is involved in suspicious shit like this. After all, some say that the Islamic State is more or less a creation of American foreign policy. So maybe you should stop thinking that your politicians are angels who fell down from heaven and decided that the best way to serve mankind would be by fighting over oil. Not even the immigrants themselves think that large immigration is the solution.
Zrena, I wish to come back to the lovely country when the war will end.
Refugees are actually coming to Sweden and being disappointed with how shitty our country is. Some even try to go back when they see what Sweden is like, because there is no job, no place to live, and no schools for their children. And the mere number of immigrants in itself leads to tensions. However, BBC also interviewed refugees at an asylum house out in the countryside, and they loved it there, had nothing bad to say. Obviously, you're gonna be content when you don't end up in the segregated ghettos of Sweden. Unfortunately, I think most immigrants are gonna end up in the ghettos eventually, because that's the cheapest housing and we have a housing crisis. And even if you would build new residential areas, these would immediately fill up with immigrants, and then we have yet another segregated area where you never have to learn Swedish.
بيوتكم وفي الحارة بتاعكم تعيشوا زي عشيرة زي عندنا.
معنا سعوديين احنا عندنا بالحارة.
الحارة ما في كله
عندنا بس عرب.
هيك.
وين شو اسم الحارة؟ روسنجر. كله يعني عرب. كله عرب. ما في ولا واحد.
واللغة بالشارع عرب.
نحكي عربي.
Integration just doesn't work if you have continually high immigration for years on end, because people need to mix. And I'm just thinking that, yeah, sure, we can accept immigrants. I don't mind immigrants. But what are we bringing them into? Human smugglers are saying that if you come to Sweden, you're gonna get a big house, a big check, and a girlfriend. Yes, a Swedish girlfriend. They're painting a picture of Swedish women as voluntary sex slaves. But what does reality look like? In the year 1990, the number of ghettos in Sweden was 3. In 2012, it was 186. Gang shootings are increasing. People are throwing hand grenades at police cars now. Car fires are around 1,000 a year, and the ambulance union is requesting riot gear in order to do their job safely. Clearly, the feeling of security in Swedish society has gotten worse and worse over the years. And I'm just like, look, I'm not even sure that you're gonna wanna live here. I mean, yeah, sure, you'll get the welfare check and you'll get some shit for free, but Sweden is absolutely not the paradise that both our politicians and the human smugglers are trying to make it out to be. And it's not weird whatsoever that the immigration restrictive nationalist party, the Sweden Democrats, are more popular than ever. They are the third biggest party amongst immigrants, and a recent opinion poll showed that they got 27% of the people's support, a clear indication that the citizens are tired of mass media and politicians preaching to them about what racist they are simply for not wanting to see their country go down the drain. If you really want to help refugees, there is more than one solution to the problem.